I'm sure most of you have heard of the documentary on Netflix titled Cowspiracy. If you haven't, a quick synopsis of it is that environmentalists are saying that the cattle industry, the ag industry, are contributors to greenhouse gas emissions, which ultimately increase global warming, climate change, things like that. So environmentalists are saying that if we switch to a regenerative agriculture, which means an all organic production system, an all plant-based diet, things like that, we can help decrease, the gas emissions, pollution, things like that. While all of those things are wonderful, and I think that everyone should do their part in helping decrease pollution, climate change, things like that, it could also have a lot of negative consequences to the economy and the U.S. people if we do switch to a more regenerative agriculture, or we take out parts of the agriculture industry in order to help decrease greenhouse gas emissions. So in order to persuade you that the world does need agriculture, despite what the critics say, I want to talk to you briefly about a couple of things. And so I want to talk to you about what exactly the agriculture industry is, what it's comprised of, how those things play their role in the U.S. economy, how they fuel and feed the nation. And then to end it, I kind of want to talk about what would happen if we eliminated those things out of our economy and we switched to a regenerative agriculture. So to start, agriculture is the art or the practice of producing fruits, veggies, or raising livestock for meat consumption in order to gain profit. So in a whole, I guess, agriculture is comprised of like your food, your fiber, and your natural resources industry. So in terms of food, you have your meat, your beef, your chicken, your pork, things like that. And then you have your fruits, your veggies, and then fiber, we're looking at cotton and wool. And then for your natural resources, we know that, especially in Wyoming, we are, major contenders for oil, gas, coal. And then another natural resource would be like water, your lakes, your coastal ways, things like that. So how do those three things, food, fiber, and natural resources, play their role in feeding and fueling the nation? Well, for starters, one ranch or farm in America can feed 166 people annually. And that's not only here, but it is in other countries as well. And so not only that, but the average person in America eats 55 pounds of beef per year. In terms of chicken, they eat 85 pounds per year. So if we are trying to, eliminate the livestock raising for meat production in order to switch to plant-based meats or a plant-based diet, we are taking a major nutritional, part of Americans' diets away from them, essentially. Without really even giving them a choice. In terms of fiber, the United States is the #1 exporter for cotton. So if we switch to an organic cotton or we reduce our cotton production, essentially we're decreasing the exportation, which means we're decreasing our gross domestic product value at the end when all is said and done. Surprisingly, actually, in terms of natural resources, the coastal waterways are major contributors to the economy. And in 2009, they actually contributed to $227 billion of the gross domestic product for that year. So another major resource that, the United States kind of has a large reserve of is coal. And while environmentalists are trying to reduce the production of our natural resources. That's for a different day. But anyways, we're still utilizing those things in terms of how we get energy, put gas in our cars, things like that. So to move on to the final and probably the most important point here, is what would happen if we eliminated, parts of the ag industry? What would happen to the economy if we switch to regenerative agriculture? So in terms of, your food, your fiber, your resources, we would be losing 5% of our annual GDP. And that's just from food alone. That's not even counting in how much we make exporting natural resources or our fibers. Another thing that would kind of happen in terms of food and fiber is, if we eliminate livestock and switch to this regenerative agriculture, we may be helping reduce the greenhouse gas emissions by 2.6%, and ultimately increasing food volume that is produced by 33%. However, according to Frank Moltner at UC Davis, in his article, What Would Happen If America Quit Eating Beef? All these plant-based products, these plant-based meat products, all the organic food, while they are organic, they are still lacking the nutritional necessities that people need. So, while the benefits are great, the good just may not outweigh the bad in this situation. So in terms of imports, exports, your gross domestic product, eliminating the ag industry would be taking away cattle, grain, inorganic fruits and veggies. And like I said, some countries just may not be interested in going all organic. So by decreasing your exports, you have to increase your imports, ultimately paying more money than you are making, which we know would very much dampen the economy. So I want to briefly touch on how eliminating parts of the agriculture industry would affect employment or unemployment for that matter. Agriculture provides 10.3% of the jobs in the United States. And while, you're like, oh, that's not a big deal. It is a big deal because, they provide, just on-farm jobs alone, they provide 2.6 million jobs. In terms of your fast food or, your restaurants, you want to go sit down and eat, they provide 10.5 million of those jobs. And in terms of your grocery stores, your convenience stores, the ag industry provides 3.3 million of those jobs. So what happens if you take those jobs out of the economy? What's going to happen to the U.S.? Well, unemployment's going to go up. The homeless rate's going to go up. We're going to take a major hit in the financial aspects of our economy, our gross domestic product, things like that. So to tie this all together, despite what the critics say, despite what environmentalists say, we still need agriculture. And I'm not saying that the rise in greenhouse gas emissions is not important, because it very much is. However, my point is, by eliminating parts of the agriculture industry, you're eliminating food, fiber, and resources that this country depends on. The industry uses these resources, these things, to feed and fuel the nation. So if you take them away, we're no longer able to provide to not only our country, but other countries as well. And without the industry, some food and fiber, like I said, would ultimately have to be imported. And so our exports go down and our unemployment rates go up. And ultimately, at this moment in time, the economy cannot afford any more drastic hits to it.